Hey, what's going on guys? So finally I can show you some of those new RTX graphics cards, one from Gigabyte, the Gaming OC, and the Gaming X Trio from MSI. So a huge thanks to both Gigabyte and MSI for working with these smaller creators. I'm not part of Nvidia's exclusive sampling list, which means I don't get to review one of those new Founders Edition cards on review day, and that's more than okay with me because I didn't expect to. Maybe next year we can change their mind. There is one issue with that though, and that's that I don't have the actual display driver for these cards, which means that my review will go up a day late, 1 to 2 days late, knowing myself. But hopefully you guys don't mind that, and again, I have to give a huge thanks to both MSI and Gigabyte for making these reviews possible. Now, for those of you who need a quick refresher on what's going on here, RTX is Nvidia's new platform and SDK to implement features such as ray tracing and DLSS, which can be processed on these new GPUs. To compute real-time ray tracing and the AI involved in DLSS, deep learning super sampling, the architecture of the streaming multiprocessor needed to be built up, and now involves a lot more when compared to Pascal. Where Pascal's SMs mostly contained FP32 FPUs, commonly known as CUDA cores, the Turing SMs now incorporate int32 units, which can compute instructions concurrently aside the FP32 operations, and the tensor cores are leveraged for deep learning tasks such as, but certainly not limited to, DLSS as we just mentioned. And of course, RT cores have been implemented here for real-time ray tracing, which I'm sure most of you have heard by now. Now, although we're getting a much less FP32 dense SM in Turing, we're getting much more SMs overall when compared to Pascal. So when comparing the Pascal GP102 found on the 1080 Ti and the TU102 found on the RTX 2080 Ti, it's quite easy to see why we're working with a much bigger GPU die with Turing. Another big change is the move to GDDR6 memory over the GDDR5 and GDDR5X memory used on Pascal. There's a significant increase in bandwidth here, now clocked to 14 gigabits per second, so potentially we could see some decent performance boosts depending on the application. NVLink now replaces the SLI bridge, and USB-C now replaces the dual-link DVI on the rear. So guys, there's your quick 60-second refresher, and now let's take a look at these two cards. And let's start with the Gaming OC from Gigabyte. So this is my first time actually seeing the cards because they were dropped off literally just this afternoon. I've seen pictures with them online, so I sort of know what we're working with here. Both triple fan designs, and looks like this one's already been opened. Just gonna put that over there. All right, so there is our Gaming OC RTX 2080 from Gigabyte. Now, the reason why this one is so interesting to me is because it's the only 2-slot or close enough card that's a triple fan design for the 2080, I believe. I think Zotac might have one on offer, but I mean, the 2-slot cards are really scarce here for the RTX series. So I did a video a couple weeks ago looking at basically what are these board partners doing now that Nvidia has moved to a 2-fan open air design, and it's factory overclocked as well. So surely that's got to put some pressure on these board partners to produce a bigger cooler, more fans, a thicker heatsink, and that's pretty much exactly what we're seeing. On further inspection, the Gaming OC does seem to be about 2.1 or 2.2 slots. The fan shroud just goes over that where the second slot would be. And the heatsink is definitely quite a lot thicker than what you'd see on a typical 2-slot card. So let's tear this thing down. So the backplate is nice and neutral, I definitely appreciate that. RGB is fairly limited on the Gaming OC card, and overall, the Gaming OC card, I believe, is meant to be sort of at the value end, whereas the Gaming X Trio, as we're going to take a look at just afterwards, is a flagship card. So I know we're sort of unboxing and tearing down these cards side by side, but they're not really comparable on the same level. Gaming OC probably will be one of the cheaper cards at launch. The backplate is actually the last thing that you take off. These are the GPU mounting points here. I actually didn't know that because they were so far apart, but I mean, that Turing die is quite large, so the heatsink will just pop off right now. I've unplugged the fan headers, and there we go. So overall, a pretty simple deconstruction there for the Gaming OC. Just unscrew the backplate and you're pretty much good to go. So thumbs up to Gigabyte. All right, so we'll look at the board in just a second, but the cooler is fairly basic. I mean, we've got thermal pads on all the crucial components here, direct contact to the heatsink, and there's 6 copper heat pipes that are in direct contact with the GPU die. There's also two 4-pin headers. Looks like one's for the RGB and then one's for the fans. So despite having 3 fans here, it looks like you won't be able to get independent control on these, which I mean is fine. So fairly vanilla heatsink and thermal design. It's great to see those copper heat pipes in direct contact. And the PCB is fairly vanilla and pretty much what you would expect from this tier of card. It looks very similar to the Founders Edition card. We've got 13 VRM phases. And so let's get a look at that die now. All right, so that's what a shiny new TU104-400 from NVIDIA looks like. Pretty nice to finally see this in the flesh, and gaming performance, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. As I said, I don't have the driver, so gonna have to wait a bit for that one. Looks like there are a couple 4-pin headers that are missing. They've not been soldered onto, so Gigabyte could be sort of recycling this PCB design for future cards, possibly the Windforce or the Aorus. Same situation with the capacitors. Looks like there's a few missing, but again, this is the sort of value-oriented card that we've seen traditionally with Pascal. It'll usually be the cheaper one, and it'll be very interesting to see what thermal performance is like here. All right, so quick reassembly for this one, and then let's get to the Gaming X Trio from MSI. So yeah, fairly traditional vanilla design that we've seen here with Gigabyte for the Gaming OC, and hoping this one comes out at a pretty good price, seeing as RTX is definitely not cheap. And that was probably the fastest disassembly and reassembly of a new card that I've ever done. I mean, there are 2, 4, 6, 7 screws in total just to disassemble the card. So I mean, that's super basic, super easy. If you need to reservice your card and repaste it, I mean, it's quite easy. All right, so let's put this guy over here and let's get to the big boy. Make sure he's safe so he doesn't fall off. All right, let's get to this one. All right, now to the flagship. All right, so this one will be quite interesting for sure. I'll just say before I've unboxed it that this box is quite heavy. God, all right. All right, this thing is massive. Holy cow. Damn, this thing is huge. I think I'm just a little bit overwhelmed by the size of this thing. Holy crap. All right, let's get rid of some of this stuff here. All right, so there it is in the flesh, the Gaming X Trio 2080. Now, as I said before, this is a flagship card, so you can expect it to be priced appropriately as well. But then again, thermal and acoustic performance is pretty much as good as you're gonna get, and overclocking on this thing should be quite interesting to say the least. Now, this one does have 2 8-pin headers compared to the Founders Edition and the Gaming OC from Gigabyte, which had an 8-pin and a 6-pin. But I'm not really sure just yet on what implications that's going to have in terms of overclocking, because most people know Pascal was fairly locked down. We can guess Turing is going to be fairly locked down as well, and I'm guessing that the 2 8-pins might give us, you know, a little bit more headroom in terms of the power limit, but we are yet to see in terms of actual overclocking performance if there's going to be a difference there. All right, so same situation with the Gaming OC. We can access the actual GPU mounting screws just from the backplate. And I forgot to mention one of the big things that stands out with this design, especially compared to the previous Gaming X Trio, the Pascal version, the 1080 Ti, is that the fans are asymmetrical. You've got 2 here that are the same on the right side. But this one is a little bit smaller and it's offset downwards. And I approached MSI and said, you know, what's going on here? How do you explain this? And they basically said that because of the NVLink connector, they had to offset things downwards. So as you can see there, the NVLink connector is quite a lot lower. I think that's to make it compatible with other cards. And so they had to offset the fan appropriately. And yeah, all right, let's tear this thing down. All right, so it looks like just by looking at the heatsink that the backplate actually does lock in the cold plate for the VRM and the memory. So I will have to actually take the backplate off, unlike the Gaming OC from Gigabyte, where I could just keep that mounted. So these are all the same size. Really helps when there's only one type of screw, so you know where everything goes. Also, I think I remember reading somewhere, I'm not sure where it was, that only Founders Edition cards got the NVLink connector cover, but that's certainly not the case. We have covers on both these cards here, which is great to see. So a fairly aggressive design, as you would expect from a flagship card, and I'll show you what the lighting looks like a little bit later. MSI did say that I can show it idling and, you know, just no performance numbers and whatnot, so we can take a look at the lighting as well. Okay, that's all the backplate screws off, so we should be able to lift that backplate off now. Looks like there is a thermal pad underneath holding things in place. So that just comes off. All right, so there are a few thermal pads here just on the SMDs on the backplate, which is good to see. Make sure nothing gets shorted out. And now we take the rest of the heatsink off. All right, so GPU mounting screws are off, so I should be able to just lift this PCB off. And we've got to watch out for those connectors. So a total of four 4-pin connectors on this board. And it looks like there is a direct cooling plate for the memory, actually. There's not one for the VRM. That one looks like it's in contact with the heatsink here. The memory cooling plate is reinforced, 2 screws at the back here. So let's take those off. All right, and off we go. So that's the memory cooling plate. I'll just put that over there. Thermal pads are in contact there for both the memory, and there's some still on the inductors here for the VRM. There's also some that bridge all across the capacitors on the right side of the VRM, but I'm just gonna leave those on. Don't really want to touch and interfere with most of it before I've done the cooling performance review. But it's actually surprising to see how sort of bare the PCB is for such, a big card. I guess that's sort of given. I just sort of guessed that, being a big power hungry card, you get the illusion from the outside that the PCB is going to be this dense monster, but that's really not the case. And from what I can see here, it looks like we're using a 15-phase VRM, so it looks like we've got 12 over here for the V-core, 3 over here for the memory, and I'll clean this one off as well since we can get some die shots. But overall, pretty much what you would expect, 2 extra phases compared to both the Founders Edition and the Gaming OC from Gigabyte. Otherwise, not really much else I can deduce from the PCB without taking a look at it. I certainly can't see any of the text on these SMDs in this lighting. Certainly nothing that I can recognize. Cooler, on the other hand, is very, very beefy. From what I can see here, it's nickel-plated copper, 7 heat pipes, and the cooling plate is actually quite a lot bigger than what we saw with the Gaming OC. So much bigger cooling plate. So whereas the Gaming OC had the direct contact with the copper heat pipes, this one does have a dedicated cooling plate, and it is actually quite large. And not sure if I mentioned this before, but it is a 2.5 slot card. So although it is big, believe it or not, this is, one of the medium thick cards out there. They do go up to 3 slots or 2.75 slots as EVGA quotes. And those EVGA cards are absolute monsters compared to this in terms of thickness. So it looks like we've got 4 4-pin connectors. Like I said before, 2 4-pin connectors for the fan. So we're gonna have some independent control there. Not sure to what degree though. And then you've got 2 4-pin connectors for the RGB, which is on both sides of the shroud. So I'll show you guys what that looks like now with the lighting as I wrap up this video. And again, a huge thanks to MSI and Gigabyte for working with smaller creators like myself, still giving us a chance to work with this new RTX technology and get these reviews out for you guys. And again, you can expect my review on the RTX 2080 about 1 day after the launch reviews. Since I do not have the display driver, I'll pretty much just stay up all night benchmarking these cards. And stay tuned because I will be comparing the RTX 2080 against the 1080 Ti, the 1080, the 1070 Ti, and the 1070 in 1440p and 4K gaming. And we will be looking at ultra-wide performance, 3440 by 1440, about a day or 2 after that. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you got that notification bell on so you don't miss my channel in all this mayhem. So guys, a huge thanks for watching. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.